So welcome to the 15th Annual Miller Lecture in Arts and Art History, and I'm going to take this time to ask you all to silence your phones if you haven't already. So my name is Emma Chubb, and I am the Charlotte Fang Ford Curator of Contemporary Art at the Smith College Museum of Art. And it is an honor and a true pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Smith College sits on the traditional territory of the Nipmuc and the Abenaki people. So the Miller Lecture in Art and Art History is an endowed program established in memory of Dulcie Bloom Miller, who is a member of the class of 1946. Each year, it brings a leading artist or art historian to campus to deliver a public lecture and to connect with the many communities of students, faculty, staff, and Northamptonites who make this slice of Western Massachusetts so special. Our speaker this afternoon, the artist, scholar, and educator Mina Cheon, joins a prestigious cohort. A non-exhaustive list of previous speakers includes the artists Lorna Simpson, Maria Magdalena Campos Pons, Whitfield Lovell, and Candice Brights, the art historians Joseph Kerner, Sonia Lee, and John Pinto, curator Ann Pasternak, and an architect whose work in progress you likely passed on your way here this afternoon, Maya Lin. As Mina's itinerary this weekend makes clear, the Miller Lecture's impact extends well beyond our time together this afternoon. Yesterday, Mina performed the work Cleaning Lesson 2 in the museum's galleries. And tomorrow, not only will she do critiques with 4 studio art seniors, but she will also lead a program for local middle and high school teachers and meet with students in conversation, for a conversation in the galleries and then for tea. So we're really grateful to Mina for her generosity and for sharing so much of her energy, expertise, and time with us here at Smith. So one of the reasons that the Miller Lecture Committee was so thrilled that Mina accepted our invitation is because of how her work moves across media and material, from the more traditional media of painting and sculpture to performance, video, installation, and activism. And this is not the only kind of mobility that characterizes Mina's work. As we'll learn today, hers is a practice invested in mobility across the time, space, and memory of militarized borders, both physical borders and internalized ones. And it is her efforts to bring to the fore the kinds of split subjectivities and messy histories created by these borders that Mina's work, like so much politically engaged art, compels her viewers to ask questions that are as urgent as they are uncomfortable. What kinds of powers are at play in the creation of Uma, a figure who is at once a hopeful alternative to patriarchal governance and a metaphor for the codified roles often prescribed for women during periods of intense nationalism? Does substituting matriarchy for patriarchy, Uma for Abba, transform hierarchical and gendered structures, or does it risk preserving them? And can art really affect social and political change anyway? So to the last question, I would offer an enthusiastic, if optimistic, yes. Art has the power to transform how people think and move about in the world, and to change whose humanity is recognized and whose isn't. And so for me, this is what makes the opportunity to come together, as we all have today, in order to listen to and learn from Mina so meaningful. Because art often works on us in unexpected ways, it can create new forms of being in community. And so in fact, I'd venture that such community is also signaled by the word Uma. Whereas in Korean, as Mina tells us, Uma means mommy. In Arabic, the word Uma signifies a nation, but in the sense of a supernatural national community of people whose affiliation is not delineated by geopolitical borders or by shared ancestry. And so I think that's a meaning that also resonates with Mina's art, scholarship, and teaching, in which she attends to the stakes of collapsing Uma, the mother, with Uma, the nation, and fosters community across the DMZ and between the Korean Peninsula and the United States. And so with that, I'm going to introduce my colleague Yao Wu and invite her to the podium. And she's the Jane Chase Carroll Curator of Asian Art here at Smith, and she will introduce our distinguished speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I'm very honored to be introducing Mina Cheon, our speaker for this year's Miller Lecture. Mina Cheon is a Korean-American new media artist, scholar, and educator who divides her time between Korea and the United States. Her political pop art, or Polipop, draws inspiration from global media and popular culture. As part of her North Korean awareness and global peace projects, which is from 2004 and ongoing, Cheon has appeared as a North Korean artist named Kim Il-sung since 2013. Cheon received her Ph.D. in Philosophy of Media and Communications from the European Graduate School, European University for Interdisciplinary Studies in Switzerland. She is on the faculty at the Maryland Institute College of Art. She is the author of Shamanism and Cyberspace, which was published in 2009. She's on the board of directors of the new Media Caucus of the College Art Association and is an associate editor of the academic journal Media N. Her painting, Sons of Joseon, Squirt Water Not Bullets, is in the collection of the Smith College Museum of Art and is currently on view at the museum in the exhibition Modern Images of the Body from East Asia that I have curated. Mina Cheon, aka Kim Il-sung, performed Mma's cleaning lesson 2 at the museum yesterday. As a North Korean Mma, she cleaned the gallery floor, and I quote from her score, in North Korean style, with fire and fury, to make way for global peace and Korean unification, while welcoming good luck to the college and the museum, end quote. We appreciate that she helped prove that we at the museum maintain our facilities very well by not being able to gather much grime from the floor. Also, thanks to her goodwill and the ritualistic preparation and setting the stage, the 5 college faculty symposium in conjunction with the body exhibition went very smoothly earlier today. The Smith College Museum of Art has been developing a very robust program in Asian art over the years. As my colleague Emma Chubb has noted, past Miller Lecture speakers included in 2011 art historian Sonia Lee, who lectured on the art and legacy of Tang Dynasty China, and in 2014, Chinese-American architect Maya Lin, who lectured on landscape photographs by Anne Whiston Spurr. Carrying on our long tradition of promoting Asian art, we have identified a major goal for our current body exhibition and its related programs, which is to bring more visibility to Asian and Asian American art and artists. I would like to thank the Miller Lecture Committee for providing this public platform this afternoon. During the symposium earlier today, identity politics is a key concept that came up several times. Mina Cheon's artistic practice embodies many identities. Her Korean identity as a woman born in the South to parents of Northern origin, her Korean American identity, her contemporary artist identity, her identity as a teacher and writer, and so on and so forth. We hope to see through her lecture and the ensuing Q&A section how this played out in her artwork. In particular, we are very interested to learn from you, Mina, the birth and growth of your alter ego, Kim Il-sung, how she came into being, particularly in relationship to our painting and what her latest developments are. We're interested to learn from you the evolving relationship between you, a South Korean American woman, and your North Korean counterparts, Kim Il-sung, how she has taken on a plenitude of personas as a Navy commander, a farmer, a mother, a professor, etc., and how that goes on as your art projects develop. We're interested to learn from you the shifting contexts of exhibiting your art, specifically in the US, in South Korea, and in North Korea, and for whom you create the art and to whom your art speaks. We hope to learn from you how you cope with mass media coverage on the Korean Peninsula, how you navigate through and negotiate with possible stereotypes and misconceptions. I think by now we are all very eager to hear Mina speak. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming this year's Miller lecturer, Mina Cheon.
Thank you for that plentiful introduction, Yao and Emma. I hope I could get the emails of the analysis of my work because I find it very helpful. I'm truly grateful to be here and honored to be here this weekend to engage with the Smith College staff, faculty, students, and extended community at large. I too come from an all-women's university. I did my undergraduate studies at Ewha Women's University in Seoul, Korea, so I feel I'm home at a sister school in the US. Thank you to the Smith College Museum of Art, once again, Yao, Charlene Miller, and others who invited me to Smith and to include my work in the exhibition and giving me this opportunity to speak at the Miller Lecture. Today's symposium by the 5 colleges faculty in the area was truly impressive. And I feel that I have witnessed one of the progressive centers of an intellectual hub and powerhouse that is covering and expanding the scholarship of East Asian art and art history and history. Especially, I was noting Professor Youngmin Moon's work and his analysis of South Korean artists and his expansion of Minjung Misul, and his mentorship to Professor Lee So's upcoming publication on Minjung Misul, which is democracy art in South Korea. And I have to say, for the young art historians, I am a self-proclaimed post-Minjung artist. I hope, I don't know, you can let me know how you feel about that later. A special thank you to your very own Smith alum and donor art historian Joan Liebold Cohen and my gallerist and collaborator Ethan Cohen for making the introduction to Smith for me. And I'm also so happy my friend, my patron, Mary Beth Shaw, who is also a Smith College alumna, is here today after driving 5 hours from New York. Thank you for making it. I'm going to start by reading a paper I've been working on with this lecture in mind, and after being in an all-day symposium, I'm requesting your grace, but now it's my turn. I've just been really, with this paper, I've been trying to capture some of my recent thoughts on North Korea, Dokdo, and my pending global peace projects that have been consuming me lately. Okay, North Korean lives matter, why Dokdo matters, and ongoing global peace projects and research. Can you hear me all okay? Yeah, thank you. All right. One of the greatest public problems a global Korean can pay attention to is the ongoing conflict between the two Koreas that echoes the many worlds that are politically, economically, and culturally, as well as religiously divided. We see global conflicts everywhere. With the escalation of threats from North Korea and the United States, Korean unification was nowhere in sight until the recent displays of hope of peace during the Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang, where both North and South Korean athletes marched together under the flag of unification, which is Korea's third flag, as well as the co-national efforts of North and South Korean athletes playing together in a joint team of women's ice hockey. Today's mantra is One Korea. Perhaps the unification flag is Korea's new agitprop for standing as a new kind of Korea for both the North and South. And even if it serves as a mere charade and political propaganda, it is a good sign to see the symbol of peace and cultural diplomacy over military threats. This is a photo of my son, Gerson. He is waving the unification flag for Mommy in Pyeongchang Olympics just last week. And here it is today. As drones make its way to light up the opening ceremony, creating Olympic circles, and Koreans march with a flag that is of the silhouette of the undivided peninsula in cerulean blue, there are multiple statements that are being made. Korea is strong, Korea is united, Korea is peaceful, Korea is technologically savvy, and Dokdo is ours, that Dokdo is Korean. I'll be focusing on that in a little bit. I'm a Korean-American artist who dreams of unification, who paints North Korean liberation, and have American audience taste North Korean desire by making artwork like Eat Choco Pie Together. That was 10,000 Choco Pie snacks for the public to eat in a gallery. This was in 2014 at the Ethan Cohen Gallery in New York. In my artist statement released with the exhibition on artist-organized art, I wrote, as a Korean, the idea of having two artistic identities, South Korean Mina Cheon and North Korean Kim Il-sung, is an obvious reflection on the country's state of being divided. It makes all the sense in the world that if a country is split, so should the artist in practice. While the Korean peninsula may be demarcated by a 38th parallel, the demilitarized zone, the history and culture is nevertheless shared. The country is united by one country's people and language. Moreover, Korea is ubiquitously tied by the never-ending heated debate on reunification and national identity. Whether we are at war, armistice, trade, or peace, this is our business. The exhibition in 2014, Choco Pie Propaganda from North Korea with Love, is comprised of Kim Il-sung's North Korean social realist paintings and an installation that covers the entire lower gallery with Choco Pie, a South Korean moon pie-like confectionery manufactured by the company Auditorium from South Korea. Choco Pie was an overnight sensation and #1 smuggled good in North Korea back then. The Orion Corporation donated 10,000 individually wrapped Choco Pie cakes in support of Choco Pie art installation, the exhibition, and the call for Korean unification. But whose Choco Pie is it? Comparable to the American Twinkie, Choco Pie has been sought after in North Korea ever since South Koreans gifted Choco Pie to the North Korean laborers at the Kaesong Industrial Complex as a token of appreciation. Symbolically, the Choco Pie has opened up North Korea and formed a loving exchange between the North and South, something that even the Korean governments have failed to do. Truly, this is a postmodern co-national cooperation, one that is viral and of an addictive kind. The Chinese character Chung on the packaging means love and friendship. Choco Pie is ours to eat for North and South Korea, and for America, let's eat Choco Pie together, for Hanguk means one Korea, not Republic of Korea, not Democratic People's Republic of Korea. This is Korea's sweet revolution. I've also been sending contemporary art history lessons as video art into North Korea by USB drive since last summer, and also exhibited at the Ethan Cohen Gallery in a solo exhibition, Amma, Mass Games, Motherly Love, North Korea. The art history lessons include themes of art and life, food, power, abstraction and dreams, feminism, social justice, technology, and the environment. The ongoing North Korean Awareness Project is meant to change the impression of North Koreans around the world. The government and regime is one thing, but North Korean citizens have the right to access information like the rest of the world, the right to be educated, and even learn art history. With support for artist-driven art projects, original and creative contributions can influence North Korea opening up and to be part of what experts foresee as Pyongyang Spring. Since the US and North Korean political leaders are not displaying any cultural diplomacy that's sustainable, cultural agents and artist activists must help promote a future of the Koreas to work in cooperation, and by that as one example, help us look towards a future of resolution and global peace. The videos I created cover modern and contemporary art from artists all around the world, including Marcel Duchamp, Nam Jung-baek, Ai Weiwei, Sharon Nushat, Mark Bradford, Kim Soo-ja. Screened on Notel players at the gallery, Notels are the commonly smuggled electronic devices in North Korea for viewing foreign media akin to older DVD and USB with USB and SD ports. The art history lessons in video art form are transmitted into North Korea, supported by anonymous North Korean defectors-led NGOs in South Korea, and by these people who believe it's their life mission to help North Koreans liberate. These defectors, the collaborators of this aspect of work, believe that this kind of information has the power to educate North Koreans about foreign culture and media. And they are sending my work in USBs directly to people they know, such as friends and family members, with rice and medical aids and other foreign goods. These care packages include information, entertainment, and basic needs. The defectors' connection in North Korea are not part of the elite society of Pyongyang. They are not part of the government. They are sending it to those who are open to receiving them. It's not a blanket assumption that North Korea needs these contemporary art videos. It's just that it's a very unique exchange, and it's happening. There are some scholars who really inspired this work, key writers and historians. We could call them the fathers of Korea studies, from Bruce Cummings, Victor Cha, Charles Armstrong, Hyunjin Preston Moon. Some of the pivotal male writers describe North Korea, their predictions about Pyongyang Spring, and the imminent internal implosion of the DPRK. Artists such as myself, being interested in working on North Korean awareness and participating in already existing media penetration into the Hermit Kingdom, is naturally to take place. Then there's another kind of study by Professor Seok-Hyun Kim and Ewha Women's University North Korean Studies and the Institute of Unification Studies. She studies the words of North Korean defectors. While oral history is questioned in the academia, her work of documenting and interpreting interviews by the defectors include North Koreans' consideration of what is the value of life. The interviews share North Korean psyche and their ideological measurement of where they fit when it comes to lives mattering. Professor Seok-Hyun Kim's work has invisible strength, and it ferments the ground for my work to take place in very specific ways. Everybody knows about the helium balloons that are sent over into North Korea for years, starting with Choco Pies over the border between the 38th parallel, now USBs by ways through China, with bribery for safe passage, all done in the network of the underground. But there's another route that's taking place, and this is the kind of stuff I can't talk about because it's happening right now. And if I did, you know, it would be a worthy news story, but a story that would put the project in jeopardy and many people involved on the line. The fact that invisibility provides strength is a unique trait that gels the project together. Also, 엄마, meaning mommy, versus mass games such as arirang, they're almost oppositional things. Mass games is a rigid presentation of the ability to cohere, whereas 엄마, mommy in Korean, is this indefinable terrain of the unknown, highlighting cultural liminality. This is the exhibition, one of the shots. Here I'm thinking of Victor Turner's postulation on the subversive power of symbolic liminality in ritual spaces in the forest of symbols. South Korea's modernization overnight is also attributed to mothers getting together and creating an internal banking system called Ketton. The idea that development occurred with mother's chimabaram, skirt wind, or wind of the skirts, is important since it's about passage, movement, strength, and solidarity. So the concept of 엄마 instead of dear father leader should be understood as a catalyst, not a defining point, nor ultimate solution. The rockiness of Dokdo, also known as Takashima, between nationness and nationless in global media culture. Going back to the unification flag. Early February, with the onset of the Olympic openings, there's a dot on the map that has brought on yet another global controversy and protest, this time by the Japanese government. The Japanese government is protesting the unacceptable inclusion of a group of disputed islands on the Korean unification flag that South Korea and North Korea are set to compete together under, or were set to compete under at the Winter Olympics. The Japanese government claims Dokdo, South Korea, occupies it, but as the Japanese would like it as a safe place for Japanese people to get to with North Korean missile testing, South Korean radical leftist activists outdoing the conservative powers, such as Uri Madang, claims Dokdo as the prime location for unification between North and South since the rest of South Korea is contaminated by capitalism. They consider Dokdo as a place where North Koreans would claim first united residencies. Both the Japanese and South Koreans are using Dokdo as political and military decoy, either to take over or create safe haven of their own kind. And just to verify, it's not that dot, it's the one next to it that's so small you can't even see it, that is under dispute. And I have a
준비 시작.
다시 한번.
다시 한번. 다시 한번.
다시 한번, 다시 한번.
The video that I shared with you, Traveling to Dokdo, it's a 45 minutes loop and is a part of a 3 single-channel video art piece shown as an installation. It was first shown at the Seonggok Art Museum in Seoul, Korea during my mid-career exhibition Polipop Political Pop Art in 2012. The work highlights the symbolic meaning of both physically and virtually getting to the desolate islands, which is geographically situated between Korea and Japan and famously disputed over belonging. The symbolic meaning, however, that raises the issue of nationalism tied to territory is far greater than the physical property being fought over. South Korean media plays up the country's Dokdo happy rhetoric to pacify the public at times, while at other times stir emotional fervor to reclaim Dokdo on a daily basis through historicization, demonstration, tourism, and merchandising. Who owns Dokdo? With technology, everyone has a piece of Dokdo. The video footages in the piece include traveling to Dokdo by boat, since I've been there several times, and by other means such as via Google Earth, online 3D tour, and Second Life. It also includes myself running the Dokdo Marathon in Seoul in October 2011, wearing a spy camera and capturing all the people running to celebrate Korea's National Dokdo Day, October 25th. This video is juxtaposed with an overlapping inner video frame of myself as You Are Korean, a Korean tiger avatar, roaming around Dokdo in Second Life. Every neighboring nation seems to have an island that is claimed as theirs and fought as mine. The set of islands that raise this geopolitical conflict between Korea and Japan, Dokdo and Takashima, is one island, two names, two countries, both claiming their separate territorial sovereignty, historical legitimacy, and national identity. Physically set as two larger islands and 30-some smaller rocks covering 46 acres in the East Sea between Korea and Japan, the island brings out the historical grievance of Japanese colonization of Korea and the unsettled debate on whose island it is. The island was recognized as Korean territory before it was annexed by Japan in 1905, but the return to Korea after the colonization and the end of World War II is still disputed and the point of contention. Japanese people view Korea's claim for Dokdo as illegitimate since the island was not listed for return in the 1951 San Francisco Peace Treaty, while some Koreans believe that Dokdo was created to handle Cold War strategies of power. To this day, South Koreans protest regularly against the Japanese and for the right of Dokdo as their property, and people do get Dokdo happy in media and throw events as patriotic gestures across the land, selling nationalism as commodity. Dokdo is also recognized as the pinnacle of East Asia's contested space that resonate other symbolic spaces of conflict, such as Sankaku Island between Japan and China, and Chiaotei Island between China and Taiwan. The third name of Dokdo is Liancourt Rocks, given by French whalers in 1849, and the North Koreans also consider the island as their own. With the South Korean Coast Guard detachment since 1954 and more recent official occupancy of a Korean couple, a fisherman and his wife, the narrative stake and claim of the island furthers the co-national tension on information and media war, while the fishery line and national resources are fought over, and tourism is polluting the environment around the island. The frenzy over ownership and the consumption culture surrounding Dokdo draws our attention to the international law of the seas, and to question whether or not sea lines subvert or promote cooperation and global peace. Politically, each country uses their own version of reality of the island as placeholders for co-national anxieties. Dokdo is the perfect example of a contemporary political and ideological decoy used to produce fear of the other and propagating co-national rivalry. My recent proposal is to work with the Imaging Research Center at UMBC and Honors University of Maryland to create a virtual and augmented reality art installation to recreate the experience of Dokdo as the global peace island, a space of unity between North and South Korea, a place of cooperation between Korea and Japan, and to signify change in space of cultural divides. This immersive VR/AR environment will be a myriad of imaginative navigational paths with great plasticity, where audience can participate to reshape the space and experience of conflicted geopolitical space. With the collaboration of other experts in the field of law and social science, we hope to create this artwork that can help influence policy and cultural diplomacy towards global peace. In addition to being specifically about Dokdo, the project has implications for understanding political and geopolitical conflicts more broadly. It makes clear how human beings latch onto specific events, places, people, or things and evolve them into the symbol of division, engines of conflict that define identity and cultural difference. What are the goals, political, ideological, or otherwise, for nations and states in maintaining such conflicts? We see the binary power construct played out in the U.S. politics, struggles between Palestinians and Israelis, culturally divided East and West, as well as post-Cold War first and third nations positionings. So this is where I am, making connections between North Korea and that dot on the map, surfacing in global media due to nuclear threats and the Olympics. While the geopolitics surrounding that dot is decades old, it is new news today as a new headline about East Asia. But in reality, the story is ancient. The hype over Dokdo is about expanding territory, claiming ownership of property, nationalism, and imperialism. While Dokdo is merely a set of rocks, its rockiness is about the lack of grounded identity and its national fragility that echoes the fragility of East Asia. I'm thinking of Benedict Anderson's way of considering how a nation is performative and how nationalism is created as an imagined community, or the way we could think about a semiotic read of space by thinking of Michel de Certeau's spatial stories to help us think about the relationship between proper place and property. Perhaps we have the opportunity to script a new narrative of Dokdo as a future space for global peace and to face Dokdo's many colliding histories and agendas. As a physical, metaphysical, and virtual space, it can be a shared democratic and transformative space for a co-national cooperation and conversation in legal and artistic terms. So that's my latest research and just kind of including and capturing a lot of different types of ideas and thoughts and awareness that I'm trying to piece together as I move forward and moving from North Korean Awareness Project more specifically to highlighting what Dokdo means because, it's such a small property, but it has such great meaning, and I'd like to bring that to some highlight with future art projects. And I've been working on that project for over a decade now. It was just a kind of, matter of time to bring it back into the front. As a South Korean new media artist, I feel this video has captured a pretty good It's Arirang News, a good, a short of what my political pop mid-career exhibition was at the Seonggok Art Museum. So I'm going to play that. So I do have a bit of video that I will tie in to just kind of fast-pace a lot of work. Here we go. And please pardon me, I have a really shiny face in this video.
A new exhibition in Seoul is filled with eye-catching pieces and bright bursts of color. But a second look reveals this exhibition is a sharp critique of today's political and pop culture.
I use global media as my source, as well as popular culture, and try to collage them.
Controversial political issues transform into pop art for Polipop, a new exhibition from new media artist Mina Cheon. She has always found inspiration in the complicated social issues of today's world, spinning them into works of art in her unique signature style.
I do have to say that is a white Obama. If you see the DIY, like do-it-yourself Obama little miniature hero, he comes in a box and he's white. And I mean, I had to blow him up in life size to really kind of, say the issues of race and culture is something that should be shared and discussed within Korea, but it took a while to really kind of have people understand that this is Obama and why it matters, and people's different perception of a black president and in a very white world. Anyway, but there's animation, and he's doing the Ally McBeal baby dance.
Even the name of the exhibition, Polipop, is unique and unfamiliar to most people.
There have been political pop art and art history. I created the term Polipop, which sounds like lollipop, and it takes political concerns and turns them into pop artworks.
At the exhibition, visitors can meet former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, transformed into a Pokemon character. The exhibition is divided into red and blue rooms. The color contrast symbolizes the polarization of Korea's foreign relations, as well as the conflict between the cultures of Asia and the West.
You could see images that are found that reflect conflict between not only North and South Korea, but also within Korea and Japan, and the imagery of China becoming a capitalistic nation.
Mina Cheon combines videos that she filmed herself at the Dokdo Islets to create an installation piece that trains the spotlight on the international controversy over the Korean islets.
Within the video installation pieces, you could see not only traveling to Dokdo physically, but also virtually. It's a kind of recollaging of those video footages from the internet as well, of myself as an avatar traveling in Second Life Dokdo.
Polipop does not limit itself to issues related to Korea. One part of the exhibition features all of the major world events that happened over the course of 2011.
It took me a year to make it. It took me every day to make it. And I would be able to select one image a day, which I felt was the most sensational image of that day that ranged from politics to pop culture.
Politics meets pop art and Polipop. Treat yourself this month to a wacky yet meaningful exhibition that will have you looking back on 2011 in a whole new way.
Just briefly, this Occupy 2011 piece right here, Image a Day, was a collection of really kind of sourcing one image that represented what media was outputting that day, and I collected it over the entire 2011. And that was a time when you would see from Arab Spring, the rise, of all these different protests around the world, and the media would feed a similar image throughout the day in world news, even tabloids, just everywhere, and I would be able to pick that up. And each monitor is a week, so I had 52 digital frames that would be cycling through all these images, and if you walk just through this space, you would see as an image what 2011 was like. Elizabeth Taylor had passed away, Steve Jobs passed away, and Trump had declared to become president in 2011 already. And it's quite interesting to see what you could learn and what could possibly happen in the future by just staying a little close and sensitive to the images that are being produced at the moment. So I really have appreciated the diligence of the project of spending a year doing this and feeling a little bit closer to media output and imagery. I had a book that was produced with this digital install, and it had the links to that image for every day. So it was like a pretty bound, thick book that it was just links, website links of where the image was found. And there was also a shift between this was my past sabbatical. I'm on sabbatical again, but I went to Korea to teach at Women's University 7 years ago, and to move from the United States to Seoul, South Korea, you could see a kind of a change of access to the images that I was able to find. And so if you walk through that, you could kind of see what became a little more centerfold. Democracy and protests that went all the way to Korea as well. Okay. And then I think as a South Korean new media artist, by the time I was making this commercial, I realized this is the pinnacle of the new media, Mina Cheon. So I'm going to share that with you. And I think it just kind of captures, this is what a South Korean artist would do in comparison to what a North Korean artist would do.
Energy. It surrounds us, enriching our lives. A life force, shaping our future, powering our world. From day into night. For Korean artist Mina Cheon, energy creates inspiration. enhancing lives, keeping us on the move. Fueling the imagination. Providing clean, reliable energy from Qatar to the world. Rasgas. Energy for life.
So usually that really confuses a lot of people when I show this video, but it makes context. It makes sense within the context that I am performing, what a South Korean artist should be doing. And Professor Moon would probably agree that no actual Korean contemporary artist in their right mind would actually do a commercial like this, except for someone like me with another agenda. But Rasgas did select one representational artist from different countries that they exported natural liquefied gas. And it was, the type of work that the artist is creating in that specific city using their gas for electricity. And so it was a bit of a right fit because I had a whole history of making like diamonds with my collaborator, Gabriel Croix, who's the father of my children and an architect and a professor as well. And, just to be able to work on a commercial like this, I really felt like if a South Korean artist needs to just reflect what was going on, the sort of heightened capitalist and consumer culture, then I could participate and just perform myself being myself, looking inspired. So I learned a little bit of non-acting acting, and during the time I was going through the shoot, because there was an amazing crew from England that came for it, I got to really just understand how directing and the film industry and the commercial industry worked. So I was doing my job, but I was actually really learning on site. It was a great opportunity. And then I wrote a script coming back from Korea for this shoot and thought, wow, I could do this too. Until I realized the budget of the film industry is like, the scale is just so greatly different than the scale of the art projects. I'm like, I'll hold that off till next time. But this commercial was, I think, featured at Qatar Air. And so I did see some circulation of it. And it's a great lead to the counterpart, Kim Il-sung. How Kim Il-sung came into being, part of my influence. I've had the great honor to have assisted in the Seoul Fluxus Festival in 1993 and got to work with 16 original Fluxus artists, because I think there are hundreds of Fluxus claimed wannabes around the world, or thousands perhaps. But I got to work with the founders and really kind of understand, the aspect of indeterminacy, performance, and the breakdown between art, audience, and stage, and the relationship between an art and life. Another key inspiration was to work with Nam June-paik during one of the first Asian biennales. This was the Gwangju Biennale of 1995, and he decided he was going to invite all of his international friends working in interactive media. And so not only did Nam June-paik claim himself as the founder of video art, he was claiming himself as the founder of interactive art, and by holding Info Art Pavilion, which showcased all these interactive art installations, I think he really put himself in the center of that discussion. I tend to keep really important big figures in black and white to contrast my very full artwork, but Silent Bazooka and Paul Earle's laser art, interactive violin, these were stuff that was being done from the 70s and even before. And so the kind of work that I did for a long period of time, and this coincided with my design projects that I collaborated, like the diamonds that you saw. This was a kind of, it's really kind of difficult to understand what's going on, but it was known as groundless. The piece kind of took a life of its own. I showed it one time, and then it kind of grew, and then it was, the piece was being invited, and so I created a manual. So, other people were installing it. But it's a field of bungee cords, and there is a projection over the bungee cords, and the Cartesian grid would kind of slowly shift or spiral, and all the lines would congregate to a vanishing point that would appear and disappear, jump. Obviously, I was thinking about the constructed mathematical Western space, a schema of scientific logic, perspective, the grid, Fibonacci, and a kind of the logic in which we understand our belonging of space. And there's a person there, and the reason you see these layers is because of the projection that's on it that's changing. This is the moment of the space spiraling. But from there, I, having gone to Kumgangsan, so a state-sanctioned tour into North Korea, I started getting more interested in actual geopolitical spaces because I was, my interest in looking at these Western schemas of scientific spaces was to be able to subvert it. How can we better understand it, understand our feeling of ungroundedness, the vertigo that we feel, in life in general in comparison to sort of the logical structure of the way that we're supposed to be in presentation. So having gone to North Korea and back, I produced a interactive media installation, and this is done by touchscreen. It mimics the official presidential ballot form in 2004, when touchscreen voting was very controversial due to questioning privacy and security and so forth. I'm still not a U.S. citizen, but I did get into the voting booth as my husband was voting. And I got a glimpse of what the voting booth kind of looks like. And although it looks a bit like a porn site here, you could touch anything. You go back to casting vote, and it comes back to this homepage. And it's about like an hour and 40 minutes of animations and videos that show my traveling through DMZ and into North Korea and my experience there, the residencies and coming back. And I did have moments where my tape was confiscated, but I had a badge that had my title, which was housewife. So nobody took me seriously. I was like, I don't know how to use this video camera, whatever, so I did get my tapes back, and it's all housed here. And it was shown simultaneously at the Maryland Art Place and Insa Art Space, Maryland Art Place in Baltimore and Insa Art Space in Seoul, Korea. And so the reception of this piece is radically different. One of the things that within Korea, people considered it, the art critics considered it more of an archive than art. Like, it didn't really fit the international standard at that time. But that it was a great resource to be able to capture all these footages. And these are some of the images. They were inside voting booths, and then what was privately kind of interacted with, you would see in larger projection out. And this was at the Insa Art Space, the same piece. But next to it, I had some objects. They're actually 99 Miss Kim. Miss Kim, representing all the Kim families we know in North Korea, but also my mother's last name is Kim. And they're identical, right? And so I had 99 of these Miss Kims produced to show how we capture the idea of North Korean beauty, whereas the media piece was really about the comparison between North Korean constructed beauty, natural beauty versus South Korean constructed beauty in the shape of the eyes. And then that's a kind of longer detail to the work, but the piece was called Halfmoon Eyes, the media piece, because South Koreans, men would claim that North Korean women have the original half-moon eye shapes, which makes them more beautiful than South Korean women, whereas South Korean women are very busy getting plastic surgery to look more Caucasian with double eyelid surgery. So if you see the whole video, you will see beautiful North Korean women, mothers to schoolgirls to police officers, versus South Korean, women as a ritual getting their eyelids done. So there's a kind of layering of the superficial and the surface by touching the screen versus the kind of very visceral, I guess, pain and trauma of the split that you would see with these South Korean girls actually trying very hard to look more Western every day. And I should have had, Girls' Generation. You've seen, all of them look like mannequins, the K-pop, female stars, right? Yeah. Also, I showed the Miss Kim dolls next to South Korean paper doll dresses that were prints produced at life size, mostly to show the conflict between North and South Korea through girls' playthings. And I grew up playing with paper dolls like a lot of girls did, but these were very specific ones. In the 70s, you could see the impression of what the meaning of sort of beauty was at that time, and you see the Caucasian blonde girls with the big blue eyes as the paper dolls that you would play with, and their dresses that were very Western or Victorian. And so to have that, something that I played with growing up, and something that really kind of made, it's deep in my psyche of, desiring this kind of Western beauty as a South Korean girl, versus the kind of uniformity, the beauty found in uniformity in North Korean military fembots. I tried to create this stark contrast in this gallery space, which was in Baltimore, Steve Maldi's gallery, with this exhibition called Addressing Dolls. But in all due respect, this is Kim Il-sung. This is the birth of Kim Il-sung. So in many ways, she's completely fabricated, right? And she's just a little doll. But really kind of bringing her out of the container and sort of to real life. Her first appearance in 2013 at the Pulse Art Fair in New York. This is Kim Il-sung, right? Taking the New York City yellow cab, getting to the site of the art fair, sitting in front of the piece that is now housed at the Smith College Museum of Art, doing some sketches, and teaching North Korean recipe, marching, bowing, giving peace pins, Squirt Water Not Bullets, Make Art Not Bombs, Posing with People. There's Ethan Cohen and Joan. And viewing art during her breaks. But it was really the year after, in 2014, with this exhibition Choco Pie Propaganda, where Kim Il-sung was able to fully realize and execute the very regimented social realist North Korean painting series. And very much inspired by Choco Pie, in the exhibition space that you've already seen, and saluting and performing 50 different ways you could say dear leader in North Korean. And there's Ethan Cohen translating that into English. Referencing some famous Brillo boxes with the Choco Pie attitude. And this is the exhibition space. The entire downstairs was filled with a Choco Pie. And maybe some of you will recognize Jeffrey Hendricks as one of the Fluxus artists. And surrounding the Choco Pie with the social realist work. So Kim Il-sung, as a social realist painter, she's also a naval commander, farmer, mother, scholar, educator. But in order to really give the social realist style and propaganda its due time, Kim Il-sung dedicated hours, like 200 hours per painting. For each piece sometimes. 3 graces. We saw a lot of 3 graces today. And part of it, through the painting series, she came more to life. So the identity of Kim Il-sung in coming to being coincides the work that she makes. So rather than just sketching it out, right? There is this kind of labor and sweat in the process of the work that is also developing and fermenting and grounding Kim Il-sung's own persona. .007, 7 years plan. And if you see a lot of the North Korean social realist posters, they are a mirror to the actual paintings. So the mass distribution for print material and print is done from the original painting. So I started to work on print series alongside the paintings, because the distribution for people is meant to be done by posters and propaganda. Yeah. So these are posters. There's other types of prints. This is Happy North Korean Children. They are Kim Il-sung's son and daughter, Kim Si-ya, Kim Si-eun. Also my children, Gerson and Sasha. And here they are in front of Arirang Mass Games. And recently you can see the print series at the Baltimore Museum of Art that is collected and exhibited at the Contemporary Art Wing. And it's wild to see North Korean Kim Il-sun's posters in the collection with Felix Gonzalez Torres, Susan Rothenberg, Thomas Hirschhorn, and Philip Guston. Their work is like monster paintings or sculptures, and these are like smaller posters, and it's framed, and it's quite radical that they're there. And the series is highlighted as a part of the celebration of the museum's recognition of Women's History Month, which is March. Yeah. Moving on to more realist works. Kim Il-sun has started to, after 200 hours of painting this one, she got a little tired and started to find abstraction within the painting field. And you could see abstraction especially here, perhaps unconsciously thinking of Sredo's piece where the high school military uniform is all one. But because she's a cosmopolitan being as well, the only way to understand a possible way of unification or a way forward for North Korean people to survive, she had to, because you can't paint abstraction under the state guidance, it was only in her dreams can she actually liberate and paint abstraction. So here, this is a whole series of dreaming hot pink North Korean paintings. And part of Mina Cheon was probably channeling her art mentor, Grace Hardigan. I came to the United States to study with Grace in '97. But for Kim Il-sun especially, the meaning of abstraction carried also the meaning of independence and liberation and a way forward. And a possibility of dreaming unification or finding the solution of unification through the dreams. And through this dream process, actually, she did paint the unification flag prior to the Olympics. So the Choco Pie box, under the theme of Happy Land, included these toys. They're cut-out, punch-out games that you could assemble and toys that you could assemble. So as the boxes went into North Korea, North Korean children or North Korean citizens are assembling what is Happy Land little miniature assembly, toy assembly, right? So that gives rise to another kind of games, not just mass games. This is a kind of underground playing. So Kim Il-sun started dreaming these games, the possibility of different kind of playing with a mild dipping and dripping situation of Yves Klein International Klein Blue. So this is the North Korean dream blue paintings, dip and drip. And some are already punched out. As a series, they look like this. And due to the dipping and dripping, here's some of the other side, where the performative event of a North Korean painter dreaming to dip Yves Klein blue is evident. There's another series. This kind of includes a more social realist print versus the dip. And with about 5 levels of clearance, I was able to access North Korean periodicals that came into South Korea within a week or a couple of days. And this is Kim Il-sun as Amma in her full virtuoso. Amma and people, Tiger Amma. Amma and modern architecture, and Missiles Goodbye. Okay, so that comes to showing you this exhibition that was dedicated to the concept of Amma, which was already well elaborated by Emma and Yao. The exhibition space really showed the heavens and earth and the underground of constructed North Korea, or the presentation of North Korea today. In the heavens, you see Amma rise and descend to Baekdusan. You also see mass games to the right. The presentation, the greatest presentation of North Korea today. This is out of the series of the 50 different ways you could call Dear Leader. This is one of the longest name title. And it's about a father who is showing his most perfect incarnation as a loving father should. And it was switched up with mother instead of father, and shown sort of to portray the banner language that exists in North Korea. Here are the Happy Land Games. We're really close, right? Yeah. Happy Land Games blown up to life size, made out of Band-Aid dots, so old technology, new technology, using DFAB and MDF. And then the underground, where you see the videos. And I'm going to end by sharing you one of the videos out of the 10 videos that are being sent into North Korea. And then either we have questions and discussions or we get kicked out. And I thought since this is Smith, I will show you the lesson by Amma, the professor, art history professor. On feminism.
Welcome. This is Professor Kim, and I am here to teach you Art History Lesson 5 on feminism. Are we equal? Feminism is a very interesting thing to learn. Do you feel you are equal? As a woman, equal to men, do you believe everybody has the same value of life? Men, woman, 할머니, 할아버지, farmer, military, worker, singer, scholar. Do we all have the same equality? Many cultures believe that some people are not equal, and they are treated with less equality. They are treated as inferiors. Many cultures think that women should be subservient to men. Many artists who are women started making art to address this issue, and they are called feminist artists. Many female artists have a different kind of power, maybe the same kind of power as men. We don't know, but we are not inferior. So many artists who are women started to make art that address equality. Feminism is powerful. One of the early works that was made that addressed a very different kind of way of thinking about art was created by a Japanese artist named, do you know Yoko Ono? She is a very famous artist and also a singer. Her husband was very famous, more famous maybe. His name was John Lennon, and he was one of the Beatles. When she created the piece called The Cut Piece in 1964, she had audience come and cut her clothes off when she was on stage. This was performance art. Performance art, yes. And by doing that, she shared her vulnerability as an artist, and it changed the relationship between stage and life, art and audience. It was very provocative and dangerous. But it also made sense because she was a female artist doing that, and many female bodies are in artwork in art history as objects. A more contemporary artist, a younger artist who is from South Korea named Yang Hae-jang, works in collaboration with heavy industries, and they make these very, very provocative text-based artwork. And there is one, I will not say the title of the piece, where she describes in text, first, women are equal in North Korea, but not equal to men in South Korea, because in South Korea, due to capitalism, there is sexism. Yes, sexism is when women are not treated fairly because they are considered inferior. Also, she makes artwork that says that there is good sex in North Korea because men and women are equal. An American artist who also uses text. She's a contemporary artist that does really interesting work with text and image, and she combines them. There is one particular piece that has the words "not stupid enough," but the image is of Marilyn Monroe. Do you remember in the previous episode who also created artwork of Marilyn Monroe? That's right, Andy Warhol with his pop art. Barbara Kruger shows Marilyn Monroe's face and writes, "Not stupid enough." Why would she do this? It is because in media and in the film, women are portrayed to be possibly stupid. That women in media and the cinema are sometimes portrayed not smart enough. Now, do you believe that women can be as smart as men? Well, I think when we get the same pay as men, the world would see us equally. But I also believe it is okay if women get paid more. Some women who have to become activists, they're strong feminists, they have to dress up as gorillas. Why? Because they are commenting on how unfair it is in the art world. Women are always painted nude in museums, so they appear as gorillas and make posters and protest feminist artwork. You never know, Professor Kim might be a gorilla girl. Lift stuff up. Sure enough.
So I have a piece on Sure in the Shot, and it goes on, and then it showcases the Kim Il-sun's work, and it ends with a lesson assignment, which this one is about finding a gorilla mask and wearing it to a party. Okay, so up to there. Thank you very much. Yeah. And here is the photo of coming to full circles, the long stretch of cleaning the museum yesterday. And I found someone on social media capturing one with the unification tied to the back, so thank you. Do we have time? How much time do we? Oh, okay. Or comments would be great.
Anybody? All right, I'll walk to you.
Hi, thanks very much for your presentation. It's really fascinating material. I guess I'm curious if you have any sense of, I think Yao was bringing this up a little bit in her introduction as well, but a question of audience for your work. Does it make a difference? Clearly, you've mentioned how the same exhibition shown in South Korea and in the United States garnered very different responses, but I'm curious, for instance, about the use of English in the video targeted at North Korean art history students or contemporary art students. So thinking about the particular ways in which that video is received by the audience here at Smith versus maybe in a gallery in New York versus by recipients via USB. And maybe, I don't know if you feel comfortable speaking a little bit more about your own relationship to North Korea as a South Korean identified artist. It'd be great, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Thank you. It was interesting yesterday when I did the cleaning the house, and a colleague of mine asked me after the performance, would you do this in Korea? And I said, never. I would never do this in Korea because all the ummas would come out and tell me, you know, you missed a spot there. I think just because of my relationship with different places that I've been able to live and been able to culturally assimilate, that I'm fortunate enough to be able to take on the differences of cultural nuances and use that to the advantage of the artwork. So umma cleaning was very specific to the first time it was performed at the Ethan Cohen Gallery, when all this media on North Korea and the threats, the war of the words was going on. It was a kind of important moment to use the exhibition site of the previous exhibition, the day before deinstall and the day before going into install, to clean house, right? To sort of ward off all past sort of historic, and media issues in order to make way for the arrival of this exhibition for Amma. So it was very specific to the New York art context. It referenced a lot of different cleaning performances in contemporary art specifically. So it was another lesson. The Kim Il-sun persona has multiple dialects, speaks in a range of North Korean, English, broken English, And it really depends on the performance of the very specific venue and opportunity. For the art history lessons going into North Korea in particular, of course, Professor Kim is going to know how to speak English. So she is speaking English. It's a little broken, but the pace of it is intentional for it to also be an English lesson. And the translation was done very intentionally for a kind of easy read of the material. And to keep the children's sort of television shows in mind and how education is done in a kind of broken down category and sequence, she followed along that program and delivered in a way that's easily accessible to children, to people who are, not familiar with art or contemporary art. And I'm not saying North Koreans should be treated like children at all, but it was a kind of very accessible language to use that we see all the time. Right? So that was part of that choice. To use the Snapchat filter, every lesson has a different, again, another guise. So different animals. It was one way to kind of blur once again, the identity of Kim Il-sung and Amma Extended. It was another way to show the latest social media technology and share that. The way that I've worked with the North Korean defectors living in South Korea, they themselves have been circulating the art history lessons and thinking that, oh, I finally understand Western painting. They call it 서양화 instead of 서양 미술. And so it's been interesting to get that take. And it did take a bit of convincing, because when I first sent them the first lesson, it was Marcel Duchamp's Fountain. And they had no idea why they had to watch, a toilet being discussed. But by understanding what they would understand, I was able to work it into the video as it was forming the first lesson. I did write the script in, I think it was a week's time, and shot the videos in 3 days. But I've been teaching, foundation art history for over 10 years. So, it's stuff that I would regularly be teaching my students. I've heard words through these North Korean defectors in South Korea, and some media evidence of their reception, and that, it reminds them of when they had the opportunity of learning art when they were younger and so forth. So about that much. So when I'm thinking about the USB work, the audience is multiple. On one hand, I'm trying to bring awareness to the world about North Koreans. And so it has to ride with the media conversations that's going on. So every time Trump tweeted something, I grab that as the next kind of output. And then the art world has another kind of expectation. And then the news world has a different expectation. And then my collaboration with North Koreans, the defectors specifically, I think, was more about seeing what's actually possible in terms of, what can we do? How can we, provide exposure and information? This kind of material is all on the internet, and everyone could, teach themselves a quick art history lesson, right? But for an artist to be doing that very specifically as a way of communication, I think might be new. And I've worked with Voice of America, Korean, to do a lot of interviews about my work. That would be aired by radio, broadcasting into North Korea ever since I've been doing North Korean awareness. So this project included that state-sanctioned radio broadcasting as well as the underground sort of push of the work kind of going in. But there's nothing new about media going into North Korea. Media penetration has been happening for quite a while. It's just I was able to kind of work with that flow to send a very specific kind of art video project. And how do I feel about being a South Korean? How do I feel about North Korea? Yeah. I mean, it's,
you
yeah.
identified yourself as a South Korean artist at the beginning of your presentation. So because you identify that way, I wanted to understand a little bit more about your relationship to North Korea and your comfortable addressing it.
I mean, I try to articulate a little bit up front that as a Korean artist, like a global Korean artist, and I don't say that in any way like, oh, I'm privileged, I get to travel around. It's more that my content of the work is the landscape of global media. So I'm charged by what happens, between cultures, not just specific to one culture. And so as a global new media artist, I'm kind of charged to present, what is sort of the relevant topics and problems of today, and respond to it in a way that I feel as an artist one can do, hopefully to just help bring, a more artistic insight or another voice to the spectrum of interpretations and analysis of, So, I mean, whenever you see kind of dehumanizing of your extended self, I think you would take it quite personally. You could say negative things about your own family member and your cousins and so forth, but, you don't like it when someone else does it, right? Kind of feels like that, the extended cousin, that I feel kind of sorry for. The sentiment is radically different, actually, in South Korea. You definitely have the range of the anti-North Korean to sympathizers and so forth, but it's more diverse than what is covered in general media, and Western media, certainly. And when Kim Jong-il passed away, and I was in Korea, also, you could see in Occupy 2011 piece, sort of the amount of attention on South Korean news about his passing away. You go to the electronic land in Yongsan, which is one of the biggest Asian electronic mall, and you saw all the TVs would have the image of Kim Jong-il's passing. It was quite remarkable. And I think there was a spirit of sadness, right? So, or sympathy, empathy, yeah. I would love to hear from, yeah.
Oh, you want to? No. Okay.
I just have a quick question. What is Kim Il-soon's relationship to the Mansudae painters in the Mansudae studio? Does she
Does she study them?
Yeah, does she study with them? Is she compassionate with them? Does she feel like they're compatriots in a struggle? And how does she feel about exhibiting at an art fair compared to the Mansudae studio artists who, produce government state-sponsored works in Africa? And yes, I just wonder what does she think of them?
She was definitely trained by the state, but she exists within the terrain of the conscious and unconsciousness, and so her appearance is real but not really. And I would like to say that she was properly trained for the global audience.
Are you done there?
Oh.
Between the two of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've never sat in a lecture where my name was mentioned several times, so I feel obliged to comment or something. I don't have a fully formed question, to be honest, but first of all, in your question about whether if I think of your work as post-Minjung art. I think that depends. My answer, I think I'll have to think about it more. I think the answer might have to be considering a number of different perspectives when you consider the word post in a very general sense, coming after an event, after the fact, after a phase or age. Certainly, you are. I have been writing extensively about artists who may be considered post-Minjung artists. For those of you who are not here earlier during the lecture or the symposium, Minjung refers to grassroots dissident group and artist movements. So, the question has to do whether you are inheriting certain legacy of a Minjung art, or whether you are pushing forward certain failures of Minjung art, addressing those failures and grappling with it. If you consider North Korea or North Korean public as part of grassroots people who were outcast in the society and in the history of Korea, in that sense, perhaps I guess you would qualify. But I must say also, there are post-Minjung artists who had a very radically different kinds of life experiences than you have, and therefore, I think post-Minjung would be very largely encompassing term to think about, I suppose. So I think I need more time to think about this.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of different reactions in looking at your work. Your work is very complex, and it addresses many different traditions and ideas and legacies in contemporary art and modern art, from obviously Duchamp to Warhol, factory, the idea of flatness, superficial appearances, to Ukele's, cleaning in an institution. I'm also, thinking about the way certainly Weinstein, North Korea and Pyongyang's official production output, as well as certain kinds of cryptic, allusions that are made by Mela and Komamit. What's the name? Komai Melamid. I said Mela Komamit.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I just stopped saying, because I don't want to be the one, lecturing the audience, and I don't like that. But I guess my question is, how do you see yourself, like your positionality as an artist? Like, Warhol being very mute artist who refused to talk about his, the meaning of his work, whereas, you're taking up all these different personas and roles. You're educating us. You're performing. You're certainly also taking up a lot of, advances of technology, avatars and so on and so forth. I'm sort of, having a kind of mind-boggling experience. I'd like you to perhaps clarify or articulate how you see yourself in relation to all these different traditions and legacies and trajectories of contemporary art.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience.
That was really educational. I think my relation with a kind of posturing of being post-Minjung, so I said self-claimed post-Minjung wannabe, comes from like a kind of alignment, which is intentional with specific art movements. And it was artist Im Ok-sang who I was honored to have him actually see my Polipop exhibition in Seongguk Art Museum. And he made some comments that really kind of helped me focus on, I do have a space within South Korean art movements where I belong. And it's not just feminist new media. And, the kind of work that I do that is activism was, I want to align myself with Minjung, which is very specifically within Korea. And I think as a Korean diaspora artist, it makes more sense to make that alignment and allegiance almost. and not be aloof from where I come from. And part of taking on Korea as a subject is because, I am Korean American. I've also learned or heard a lot of my Korean colleagues saying, "Oh, you're more patriotic than all of us. Who wants to talk about Korea?" It's just like a messy subject because they're living in it. But being able to live outside of Korea and get to do some work in Korea, you are able to have a comparative lens, and that seems to be my unique sort of way of working, or that's something that I could, but that's kind of a true parallel of the way that I experience life and the way that I get to kind of intervene in the art world and beyond. And I think kind of the identity of an artist is no longer so singular, and you can't function, with that romantic idea of the genius. And I call myself academic artist, and people are like, like the French Academy. No, I mean I'm primarily an educator. And I came to the United States to learn and remained in the United States to learn how to educate. So I'm in that sort of microcosm and ecosystem, and it is through that institution, which I'm really proud of, the educational system, that I'm able to make paths and connection to other worlds like the art world or audience or general audience and different communities that is more impactful because I am kind of stationed and I know what my offerings are or what I could be, how I could be at my best. And one of the things that I learned along the way is with teaching, if you teach what you know, if you teach what you're passionate about, then you are teaching well. Right? And all the research in order to become a better teacher comes with not just the passion or so forth, but really teaching what you're good at and what your strengths are. And I think as educators, many people, many professors do teach, work with their students to bring out the strength and support their weakness. And my strength in kind of working is this cultural comparative lens, and to be as complex as the world that I see is as honest as I could be. So if I'm trying to be a commercial sensation, then I have to work in a very different manner. And so I can't be completely that. And I can't, becoming a Biennale artist seems to be another track, or a residency artist is another track, right? But it's sort of the home base being like what I call academic artist, like artist teacher, right, is a great way to continue developing your art and learning in the process. And I think that's really it for me. So it made sense when I was thinking about sending information through USB, what's it going to be? I knew that Joan Cohen was teaching Chinese artists, like, the avant-garde artists, Western art history. I was like, oh, it's got to be art history. What else? What am I going to send, right? What is truly something that I could send well? So it kind of became that match. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much. I did come across your Seonggok exhibition catalog, but just to see the exhibition catalog, I didn't really get to learn the complexity of your work and art. So this was a great opportunity. I am really grateful for this, the lecture. I'm an art historian who focuses on the 70s and 80s South Korean art, but on the other side, I'm trying to kind of become a culture critic about Korean national division and partition. So your talk was very much sort of in line with some of the things that I've been thinking about the Olympics and the unification projects and etc. So it was really fascinating in that sense. I want to make one observation. It seems like there are two kind of frontiers of imagination that are operating in your work. Mostly one that, I guess, performance that evacuates sense of sincerity. So you're always sarcastic, and your sarcasm, as you rightly said, comes out of kind of your life experience that has taught you how to play with the difference in cultural nuances. So I really like how there's an awareness and you play with that. So for a North American audience, of course, it's so odd that the DIY Obama statue is white, because it's a powerful statement that we finally have someone like Obama. But South Korean audiences, they don't get it. So there's a sense of certainty that you have when you play, when you perform. But there are two moments that I found really interesting where imagination kind of triggers into realm of obscurity and invisibility, and that has to do with your sending the USB. You paused a little bit and said you can't reveal and you don't know, yet it seems like there's something really big there, colossal, that you cherish. And also there was another moment with Choco Pie Happy Land project where you know that thousands, if not like tens of thousands of these miniature toy paper cutouts have maybe triggered into North Korea, but you don't know what happened to them. So it's kind of your also imaginative project. So I was wondering, this is an observation, but something so fascinating. What does obscurity or what does invisibility also play in your such a hyper-visible, stereotype-driven, performative identity-playing project?
It's really kind of a dense observation. I think I'm gonna have to do that one. Like, she is just playing. No, I'm sorry. That means let's discuss further over dinner and wine. I think the Happy Land on the Choco Pie box was just such a strange thing to be seeing, and especially North Koreans did a national research of being the second happiest nation in the world in 2011. So it's the Global Index of Happiness. So after Big China, they're the second happiest country. And so it makes you question, you know, what's the meaning of happiness? Is it, you know, consumption culture? You know, I mean, how do you define happiness? And obviously, just within the United States, right, quality of life and happiness is quite related. But, you know, we're also in such a kind of depraved and poverty-stricken, like awful mess of a country, right? How can we claim that we are so incredibly happy and North Koreans are, you know, pathetically unhappy? I mean, that just seems, you know, it's so contradicting, and it's just pointing out, you know, a kind of a question of how they define happiness. Obviously, it was for national propaganda, but they were happy because supposedly they were equal, right? That they were equally, I mean, this is all propaganda, it's not the reality, but communism was supposed to bring on that kind of plenty happiness, and as a ideology, it stands for something that we don't commonly think of, like equalism, like, you know, like socialist equality. I think we would be happier if everybody had, you know, better medical insurance opportunities, and we could go on. If, you know, we are saying that happiness is derived from quality of life. But to see South Korean manufactured Choco Pie that, is distributed around the world and smuggled into North Korea with this kind of labeling. And it had an amusement park, with those toys. The presentation of happiness is just kind of ripe for just opening up a discussion of attitudes and I guess ideologies. But recently there was a promotion of Pyongyang, and they did have an amusement park. New York Times journalist was able to go into Pyongyang and interview Pyongyang citizens, and they were really sort of the elite. They are the most, sort of on the front of North Korean propaganda, and they were really saying they're ready for war and they're going to win, and they have the most at stake by, playing that role. And the backdrop was that they too had an amusement park and they too were happy, So they're kind of colliding expressions and presentations, and I think, sometimes I can't fully analyze where everything's at or understand it, so these kind of discussions help, but I do like to be sort of at the cusp of these clashing moments and share that. Whether, first thing I do, blow it up like all other pop artists, right? It's like there's no other way to, transform it into something else. The first thing you could do is just blow it up, give attention to it. And I think that's always my level of engagement. Where are these, sticking points? And how do I give it light? How do I deal with it? How do I try and understand it? And that's a very academic approach as well of understanding a subject. And then it takes a kind of an unpacking and unraveling process of understanding what it is I'm creating and what it means and how it's contributing or not, or what's a flop or just never made any sense to anyone, or and so forth. And then I think the evacuates the sincerity. We live in a world of hyper appropriation. And I've been thinking a lot about appropriation and its distinction between it becoming fake news. And I realize cultural appropriation or artistic appropriation is very, very strict in its intent and meaning. And so it's sort of like hyper citation, right? So artists who appropriate things well do it purposefully, and it's understood. You got to kind of deliver it all the way. You can't just cut and paste and mix and and leave it at that. Maybe that's more at the realm of entertainment, and that's okay. I mean, I love being entertained too, but. When artists are doing it with intent, there is a radical difference than the way, fake news is generated by almost a copy and paste without meaning to the context of what is being said. So the intention is lost. So the evacuating sincerity in a reproductive culture of appropriation is with great intent, and it's not done just for fun. Yeah. Yes, okay.
So please join me one more time in thanking Mina Cheon for her lecture tonight.
Thank you.